T minus 30 seconds. T minus 20 seconds. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Welcome to All Tree Monitor Talk, episode 2 with Parker and MJ tonight. What is good? Hope everyone's having a good start to your Saturday evening. It's a beautiful Saturday evening here in San Diego. Hope everyone's having a good time out there. Tonight we have a special guest. Parker is coming to tonight's table to talk about his success with tree monitors recently. And yeah, Saturday evenings always going to be about those tree monitors. So I hope you guys are ready to just geek out and just learn more about tree monitors, because this is something that's going to be exciting for me to listen to. And yeah, shout out to everyone out there who supports the US ARC. Shout out to US ARC family. Shout out to Phil Goss. I hope US ARC does well at the US ARC Dallas auction. Shout out to anyone who went to the NARBC Dallas show. Let me know how that went. Very curious how that went. But yeah, man, shout out to US ARC. I do want to say shout out to anyone out there who's ready to hear from tonight's guest. And that's going to be Parker. Park. What's up, Parker?
Yo, what's up?
How you doing, buddy?
Pretty good, man. Pretty good. How about you?
Thanks for starting this early for me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, man. How's everything, man? You're on fire right now. First and foremost, props to you. Really,
thank you. Yeah,
really happy. Really happy where things are headed, man. But go ahead and tell us a little bit about how you feel.
Yeah, it's been one of the best weeks ever. Just had 4 baby yellow tree monitors hatch and 4 baby golden spotted tree monitors, or Varanus bomii. And yeah, they're all doing great. Some of them have taken their first meal. All the yellows have taken their first meal. The bomii, one had his first meal today. The others still haven't yet. But they're all drinking water. They're all as social as can be. And yeah, it's been pretty good.
Now, remind me, the yellows are from import. They're imported parents, right?
Yeah, both the bomii and the yellows are from imported wild-caught adults.
And how long did you have the parents for? Like before you started pairing them up? Like how long were they in your collection for?
The yellows were the first pair I acquired. My female black tree monitor was the first tree monitor I ever got, but
right.
The yellows I've had for I think 3 years now. Yeah, probably about 3 years, maybe even 3.5. And yeah, I honestly was starting to give up hope on just because of the female. My male's always been pretty good, but that female, she's really awesome now, but she was by far the craziest tree monitor I've ever had. And for a while there, I mean, it took me, when I first got her, I couldn't even get her to tongue feed for the first year. The first year I would try every single day on routine. Never could get her, could barely even approach the enclosure without her just taking off running.
Right.
And yeah, then when I moved her into the enclosure she's in now, it reset, and I think it took another 6-7 months to get her tongue feeding again. But then shortly after that, she locked with the male, and then got some eggs. And since laying the eggs, she's actually one of my best females now. She almost never freaks out, which is pretty awesome.
Now, before we get into the whole egg laying success you've been having, and actually talk on the babies that are currently in your enclosures now, I want to talk about maybe establishing some sort of trust with your tree monitor, because first and foremost, I have my pair of Persinuses that I've had, right? And I've been bit by both them, man. And you get bit by something like that, you don't forget it, right? And so I always kind of have that well, dude, I'm definitely not trying to get bit by you again. Meaning if I hold you, if I have to hold you, I feel like I'm gonna have to secure you in a way. But let me ask you how you would approach, or how you did approach, something that just wasn't used to being handled, but not really handled, just maybe associating itself with anything. What's the best way to intro yourself into a tree monitor that's just not used to being around anyone, or just isn't social to begin with?
So I always, in my own opinion, I like to leave it up to them in a lot of ways. I like to slowly push their boundaries. So when I first get one in, I play it differently depending on the individual too,
Right.
because they're all so different. But like for one, like my female yellow tree, my first objective is to get them just eating, whether that's out of a food cup or tongue feeding, preferably.
Right.
But I'll start with just a food cup, like for her. And then, I mean, she would, the second the door handle would turn down from me about to walk into the room, she would just take off running. And unlike other tree monitors that are usually nervous, that'll just dive into a log and it's like it's one quick movement and then they're just hiding in the log. She would just run sporadically, banging her head into everything, and it was scary because I didn't want her to hurt herself.
Right.
And so what I would do is I wouldn't really push the tongue feeding at first, and I would just focus on trying to get her used to my presence. So I'd get on my like knees because her enclosure was lower at the time, and so I'd get on my knees so I was like eye level with her, and then I would just like inch towards her, and I mean I would spend like an hour sometimes in there just trying to inch towards her, get as close as possible, and I'd slowly open the door, slowly try to put my hand in as close as I can without her running, and then once she gets more comfortable with that, then I move on to trying to tongue feed, and I would try different items. Typically, I'll try to figure out what their favorite food item is. 9 out of 10 times, it's either egg or it's pinky mice or pinky rats.
Right.
And so I'll scramble up some egg or I'll thaw out a pinky mouse, and I'll just inch the tongs towards them with the food on it, and then just sit there with it in front of them and try to just hope and wait and hope that they eventually come and take it. And then, yeah, I mean, I've gotten denied for months at a time. And then finally one day I'm not really doing anything different, just the same thing every day. And then finally
Right.
one day they'll just take the food and then it's just like all downhill from there.
Right.
And within like a matter of days, they're tongue feeding just like the others. But yeah.
Yeah. So, and that's the thing. Okay. So, I really appreciate, like, first and foremost, I don't need to hold my tree monitors, even though like it is fun working with the ones that are sociable, right? I have younger ones that I've been raising up and they come out and they're awesome, but these ones, ever since I got them, were almost near adulthood, they were kind of already older. And mind you, the times I got bit by them is when they jumped out of the cage and they're fucking running forever,
Yeah.
they're trying to take off basically, right? So it was that quick pick them up and they turned around and just got me right in the finger.
Yeah.
And like that,
That's not fun.
dude, it hurts. Like it's, man, both bites, I think, like I felt it for a few days at least, like just the stinging sensation of it, right?
Oh yeah.
So anyways, and then I know it could be worse too because they got some crazy teeth now too, so I'm just like, don't want to get bit. I try to do my best not to get bit by anything, but I also know after seeing you and Codey and other people just kind of build a trust eventually with any tree monitor, you kind of have to break some boundaries at some point, which I feel like I can easily do because these are very sociable eaters. Like, meaning if you have food, they will jump out on you and eat, right? My natural instinct is if they jump out and then they hit the floor, I'm gonna want to grab them, right? Because my room's secure, but it's also a room where they could get behind shit that would suck. Like I would have to like, I'm sure you've gotten tree monitors behind things before, right? And you had to go grab them, right? That's a normal thing, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure.
But but for me, I don't have time a lot of times to like be running around, and also I just stress out when they're on the loose. I don't like it. Like it's like, you know what I mean? But anyways,
sure.
So I do know I'm at that point where I need to kind of test the boundaries a little bit because I do want to be more sociable with them, but I'm also like not trying to push any envelopes here. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I always like to push their boundaries as far as I can without like scaring them, like
Right.
without them taking off running. But like, I mean, well, I guess now I have 24, but all 24 of them, I mean, the 8 babies are all literally as tame as can be. I mean, I don't know if you saw my story earlier, but the yellow trees, both the yellows and the Bomia,
so
he'll be
cool.
scratching at the glass. I'll open it up. They'll just all jump out on me. It's mayhem. But all the adults,
you feel like that's because you established that from the get-go, huh? Like right when they came out, they were already kind of used to being in your hands.
yeah. So the babies, that's a little bit different. Like them, and I'm not even gonna lie. So I've talked with Codey about this a lot, and I have had the opinion that it comes for a lot of them. It seems, in my opinion, I thought it was I thought that they would be more predisposed to being that tame. Like I didn't really think there was. I thought maybe they'd hatch out. I could try my best to like socialize them, maybe get them used to me with food and stuff, like a just like an adult. But
Right.
I was thinking like the yellow tree monitor babies, for example. I was like with the genes from my female. I couldn't see them being super hand tame, but my opinion has now changed, and Cody has been telling me this. But yeah, I was there like right as they would come out of the egg, and then I just never restrained them. I would just scoop them up out. Some of them were more nervous than others at first. Like some were taking off running, freaking out in the egg box. So I'd let them go in the enclosure, and then I'd just sit my hand near them. And then
Right.
after some of them within 30 seconds, they'd walk onto my hand, and then I'd sit there with them for like 30, 45 minutes. And then others would still be kind of nervous, but they would investigate because they're just so curious right when they come out. And then eventually, maybe after a few minutes, they'd walk onto my hand, and then I'd just take them right out and hold them. And then after that first interaction, like the Bomei, especially, they were spazzing out when they first hatched out. I think it's because they all four of them hatched in pairs, so like two came out of the egg at the same time, and
Right.
then the last two came out of the egg at the same time. And I think just like being all on top of each other like freaked them out even more. But within a matter of minutes, they were just completely tamed down. I was petting them on their back, petting them on their head, on the
Saw
chin,
that.
walking them in
Oh
my
man, I was
hands.
I was one of those many people just following all your stories, bro. Like and, you know, and
Thank you.
many people posted stuff before I could even catch it from you posting it, and that's why I was like, holy shit, this it's popping off, and I feel like you've had a lot of people just on watch, you know, and
Yeah.
it's really awesome to see just someone like yourself, and when I say yourself, someone who's just kind of young, barely just coming into the game in a sense, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
As far as compared to a lot of other people who've been doing it, you know.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, I really appreciate all the support. It's been a lot. I'm sorry if I've been slow on to anybody watching. I'm sorry if I've been slow on responding. I will respond. There's just been a lot of messages, and I've been 10 times as busy with all these babies now, so
Yeah.
it's taking me a bit of time, but I will respond. But yeah, I'm very appreciative of everybody supporting, and I'm blessed to have these babies. Yeah, they're incredible.
So let's kind of ask the question everyone would want to ask you in a sense, like why do you feel like you're having success with tree monitors? Now I know you've talked about a lot of learning curves, you know, you figuring dialing some stuff out, but what do you think it is personally at this point?
I don't know. I've always felt a lot of it has to do with just how comfortable they all are. Like
Right.
they're all, and I even take it a step further than I maybe not everybody, but like most, I would say, where for example, if like I almost never ever restrain them. So like when I've explained my enclosures and how I have each individual adult has at least a 3 by 3 by 5, but then
Right.
there's a tunnel that connects it to the opposite sex of the same species.
Where's that
That
tunnel at? It's up top, right? Or where do you have the tunnel at where they could
it's
cross
like
over?
right in the middle. It's a
Okay.
little more. It's like right above the midway point of the right or the left wall.
Okay.
And so like I also use that tunnel, even if I didn't use it to like obviously I use it for separation, so I never have to grab out the male and like stick him in another enclosure. Like just I mean that's not the end of the world, but I just try to avoid all grabbing because I feel like it really just takes it hinders the relationship. It makes them they remember that stuff in my opinion. So
Right.
but like when I clean out enclosures, like I'm cleaning out one of the black tree monitor enclosures right now, and I just would lure both of them into one side and then close off the tunnel, and now I can just clean out the whole enclosure without having to like tub them or anything like that. And then once that's done, I'll bring them into that enclosure, close off the tunnel, clean the other one. Or when I take weights on them for the vet and stuff, if I have to grab them out, like I'll grab them out for ultrasounds, obviously, or like examinations. But I also try to do house calls, and I'm fortunate enough that my vet does house calls frequently for me,
Nice.
and that way I don't have to like drive them all the way to the vet. But for weights, I'll just lure them down onto the scale with food, and then I'll just like make them tripod or try to get them to just stay there for a second, and then record the weight based on that. And
Right,
yeah,
yeah, wait,
I
so
feel
hold
like
on real quick, Parky. So
yeah,
you have a
sorry.
vet, your vet comes by regularly, you said, or
Well, I guess I just anytime I need him to,
okay.
which I mean I'm always like I try to take blood like every maybe not 6 months, like once a year at least, and kind of get a good idea. I have he's lent me a microscope and some different supplies to be able to do my own fecal exams. So I'm like
Okay.
constantly doing fecal exams. So things like that. Also ultrasounds. I don't really do as many ultrasounds now because I feel I really know what I'm looking for right now. But at
Right.
first, that was a big help in learning like where they're at in the cycles and
Right.
all that. But yeah, he's great. His name's Dr. Driggers. He runs. He's the owner
Cool.
of Avian and Exotic Animal Clinic here in Arizona,
Epic.
and 10 out of 10 guy. Love him.
You would say that's a kind of like a huge tool to have in the box, right? Like to have someone like that is kind of a godsend in a game like what we do, right?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, yeah. Because I think just a lot of stuff like that. Like I also like just checking parasites routinely. I don't if I just see like if I see like one pinworm. I mean, reptiles are gonna have parasites. Like it's unavoidable, especially things like pinworms. Like those are in every feeder, and it's really unavoidable. And reptiles can handle pinworms extremely well, especially monitors. But like I'll just keep a monitor. I'll monitor their. Right now they should all be clear because I just treated them all. But eventually it comes back. It seems I don't know. But anyways, I won't treat them unless it gets to a certain level. But I feel like monitoring that constantly also helps with the females because I feel if a female has something like a parasite bloom, she's not really going to want to cycle because she has to conserve energy because the parasites are sapping so much if it's a big enough bloom. But yeah, I think a lot of that contributes to the success so far.
Yeah, I do know. I've heard this plenty of times, about how tree monitors won't do anything if they're not happy. Like if their situation isn't what it needs to be for them to be comfortable, you won't get any results. The male won't breathe, the female won't cycle. Like that's like the tough thing about monitors, but also like the reward thing if you get it down because it makes you think and it makes you not be complacent. And I had my female lay back to back clutches. And her last clutch was last year when I first moved into this new room that I've been in. And I say new because it's been a little bit over a year since I've been in this room and I still fucking figuring shit out. And what I mean by that, like she stopped giving me clutches after that one clutch. And I know it can mean a lot of things, right? I mean, I know I haven't separated the male long enough for when I think I should, even though we talked about that. And I know we'll talk about that here in a bit as far as when to separate a male or, when do you feel it's necessary and whatnot. But I do know, man, for sure, after kind of looking at things, I've been keeping things a lot warmer than I really want to. And I do know that every reptile needs, especially this time of year, needs a cooling point or needs something to drop down, So I think temps has been something I've been battling so far in this room. And I can't remember what you said on our first episode together, if there was an adjustment you made with your temps. And if you could remind me what that was or what you're doing. Right? Did you make some sort of change like the last time you were on the show? You said something about the temps.
Not really recently, but I did a while back, like probably around a year and a half ago now. I did. I had kept them in around 110, like 105, 110 for the basking spot.
Okay.
But then after I talked to a few people, especially Codey, I've bumped it up. Now I keep it right around. I did some experimentation. I had it at like 130. I noticed they wouldn't lay in the focal point. They laid more on the side. So then I dropped it down closer to right now. What I have it at is like 120 to 125, but I try to keep it closer to 120 because that seems to be, they'll sit there and bask for 30 minutes and then they'll start moving around the enclosure and get active.
And how active do you see yours on a regular basis? Like, and I'm just saying, like maybe some that aren't not even worried about pairing right now. I mean, are they pretty active for the most part during the day, or what do you notice?
Yeah, they're super active. Honestly, they're all always going crazy. Some more than others, even like my black trees. Oh my goodness, they're the main reason that I want to go even bigger than what I have now. Like, I mean, they have technically they're constantly in a 6x3x5 enclosure since the tunnel's always open.
Right.
And even though that dude has all that space to explore, he still always is trying to jump out, trying to scratch at the glass. He always wants out.
Yeah.
But yeah, sorry.
No, you're good. It's another thing too, like because I just heard an awesome podcast with Brandon Van Asten. He was on Dylan's podcast, Animals at Home podcast. Anyway,
yeah, I saw a bit of that.
I love Brandon, man. He's fucking
great guy.
Guy's a G. But anyways, he talked about how the Picari is like probably the most sociable one from what he's experienced. And I'm like, dude, totally, that's what I'm experiencing. Like my black ones are just like looking to come out at any time. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And it's cool because I'm like, man, I wish the other ones were this like, not that, they're easy because I feel like you could still do something to break some sort of trust. So you got to always kind of just be on their kind of timing as far as like, not putting any pressure or making them spaz out. I think the best thing you got to do is not spaz these things out. Right. Because like you said, they don't forget, like they have they remember shit, but man,
sure.
like they're just, maybe because the blacks are so sociable, they're not that quick, but my yellow, bro, is so fast. Like I'm talking like, bro, like she's gotten out twice, and twice I thought I was going to lose her, because how quick she was moving. She was a lot smaller than the blacks. The blacks, though, man, just I have a great time with them, man. It's like
they're awesome.
They're just so fun.
They're so fun. They're
Dude,
so
they're amazing.
confident. Yeah, they I would say I would put them at probably number one for confidence. Like they almost all like unanimously seem to just be so confident. But Cordensis, I will also say, are super confident. Like all five of my Cordensis are incredible. They'll jump right out on me for food. I have one girl that I can just hold just like my captive bred babies. Like she's fantastic. And them and the Bomei too. I will say the Bomei seem to have. So I guess my third or my second male is he was a little more nervous at first, but he came around fairly quick within a couple months, and now he's fantastic. He'll be running up my arm for bugs, and that was the case for the female and my other male too. Like they seem to just have that same, like, not quite as much as the Bakari maybe, but they seem very confident.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like night and day for me so far. I just got my credences from Brian Susan. Little booger, guy's small,
Yeah,
not really pushing it too much on him, but it's cool to just interact, and I haven't really seen that confidence yet with it. But
yellows and blues teams tend to be more nervous, in my opinion. That's why I was so shocked that my yellows are as tame as they are. They're incredible, man.
Your yellows are so nice.
I'm blessed. I'm blessed.
Thank you. Back to your temps talk real quick, as far as that basking that you offer, it's for how many hours of the day is that basking available for?
Yeah, good question. So I leave my basking temps on from 11 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. So I don't leave them on 12, but then I have my UVB turns on first at 7 a.m.
Okay.
And it turns off at 8:30 p.m. at night. And then I now have all luminized in all my true monitor enclosures, and I love those things, man. The Luminize are awesome because now I have like a full sunset, sunrise, because I was always trying to simulate that before the Luminize came out. So when those came out, I was like, take my money.
What time did you say your Luminize come on at?
7 a.m.
And then they turn off at 8?
8:30.
Okay.
8:30 p.m. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So the tree monitors won't stay out that whole time. Usually the tree monitors come out around like either within the first hour of the UVB turning on, and then they'll kind of take it slow. And I also have deep heat emitters that turn on with the UVB, so then it kind of gradually warms up the enclosure, and then when the basking lights turn on, it holds it the excuse me, like 82 to 84, and then so I have those on the UVB. Sorry, and then so I have the deep heat emitter that turns on at 7 as well. Then it turns off at 10:30 right before the basking. And then my grow lights also turn on at 11 with the basking lights, and then they stay on until 6 p.m. And that kind of simulates just like a brighter midday.
Okay. And then by the time nighttime it hits, when is there no lights? Like, so all the lights are off by 8:30?
Yeah, all lights turn off at 8:30. The basking turns off at 5:30 p.m. Grow lights turn off at 6 p.m. The deep heat emitter turns back on at 6 p.m. and then turns off again with the UVB at 8:30. So there's nothing on at 8:30. And then I let temps get down to like, I actually let them get down to like, well, now in the summer, they'll probably, just to save my AC bill or my like my electric bill.
Yeah.
I'll probably keep it more around like 75, 76.
At the night?
But in the winter, at night. And then, but in the winter, I've been letting it drop to like 73, 72 sometimes. Try to keep it like around 73, 74. But yeah.
Now you would say those kind of temps dropping are pretty vital to like your female cycling, right?
I don't know. I would say it more is helpful for the males to stay fertile, because I've heard from some other people that if you keep males too warm, which it makes sense, because I mean that's like why well, never mind. But it makes sense because sperm can die at high temperatures. So if you have
Right.
them under constant high temps, that could be why you like some people are getting a bunch of duds, even though their pairs are locking. That sometimes is the culprit, is it's just too warm and the male is infertile for time being. But but yeah, I guess I think it kind of just helps them overall, gives them like a point to cool down.
Right. And I feel like that's kind of a safe zone you do yourself with only having basking around for about 6 hours. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. That's another reason I like the UVB two or the luminized UVB too is that is that when dimming it, it also lowers the UVB output, which I like because I don't feel like they need to be under like constant super high UVB all day. Because I mean, it's same like with the concept of sunrise sunset, just like in nature, the UV outdoors is going to be way different in the morning versus midday versus sunset. So I kind of like to give them that like higher. It's like I'll keep maybe like the highest point right underneath the UVB. It'll be like at a 4.5 in the Ferguson zone, but then
Right.
it's only like that for 2-3 hours, and then it kind of drops back down. But yeah.
Yeah. Now I'm curious, what's the ambient in that enclosure by the time the basking is off, right? And the it turns off. Do you have any kind of record as far as what that ambient is sitting at?
Yeah, so when the lights turn off, so that's another reason I like the deep heat emitters because without having to add any extra light, I can have it gradual. So in the morning time when the deep heat turns on, like it'll still be, 74, 75 in the enclosure from the previous night. And then once the deep heat turns on, it'll increase like a degree, maybe 1.5 degrees every like hour or so. So by the time basking lights have turned on, it's right around 80, 80, 81. And then
Mm,
basking light turns on, it'll bring it up to like that 84. And then there's also a big gradient. So like the 82 to 84, typically more 84, is more in the very top of the enclosure, like right under the UVB, right under the basking light. And then you go down in the middle of the enclosure, it's more 70, 79, 80, 78. And then the bottom is still like 75. So it's
okay.
still nice and cool under there. But yeah.
So you try to keep that floor around 75 as much as you can, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
Leave them that way they typically won't spend much time down there, but I've started redoing my enclosures a lot recently too, where I've made them a little bit more open since they're all so chill now. And I've noticed now they'll spend more time laying in like the middle of the enclosure or even lower down where the temps are a bit cooler,
Right.
and they'll lay out in the open rather than like in a log like they used to, which I think is pretty interesting.
Right. What do
But
you what do you think as far as like obviously humidity is important, right? But are you
mhm.
spraying them daily? I mean, are they getting daily sprays? Are you doing them like every other day? Like how are you applying their the time where they get, the artificial rain, I guess you could say.
Yeah, so so recently I got, which I was talking to you about because I got the same one that you got because I had been looking for one like that, but I couldn't find one. But I got a humidifier for the room, and
Yeah.
that has helped substantially because I live in
Yeah.
Arizona and the humidity here is
Sucks, I bet.
non-existent. So
Yeah. Yeah.
like even with the tree monitors all in there, the room was only like 40-45% out in the room. So anytime
Mm,
I'd go in there and open a door, it would
sucks.
drop in
Gone.
the enclosure. Exactly.
Yeah.
So I would try to be quick with feedings and stuff. But now I have the humidifier hold the room at 60%. So now it's perfect. And so I use a Mist King. The Mist King kicks on at 7 a.m., but now I can mist less than I used to. So the Mist King kicks on at 7:30 a.m. for a minute, and then it kicks on at what time is it? 8 p.m. For also a minute. So it's just a minute in the morning, minute at night. But then I also go through and every time I change waters, well, no, not every time. Sorry, probably once a week. So every other time I change waters because I typically change waters every 2 to 3 days. Some I change more frequently depending on how dirty they get the water. But
Right.
every time, sorry, like once a week, I'll go through and I'll soak all the substrates, and that helps with humidity a ton. And I've started adding a lot more substrate recently as well. So now I
Right.
probably have. I would like more ideally, but it's for right now it works perfectly. I mean, humidity is great in there, but right now I probably have like 8 inches of substrate. I'd say maybe
Okay.
7, but Yeah.
So you're with the way you have things run, you don't have necessarily a need to have any kind of draining system, or do you have a draining system on your enclosures?
I do. Yeah. I have I just it's pretty simple. It's not anything really special, but I just have drain just holes cut in the very
Right.
bottom.
Mhm.
And then the substrate sits on top of the plastic egg crate stuff that you can get from Home Depot.
Right.
And then on the underside of that, I just like cut some pieces of it off to kind of make a stand, so it's raised up like a half inch for the water to flow through.
Right.
And then underneath the hole, I just have like a bucket. It's just like a Home Depot bucket. Um, but yeah, yeah, it works. It works perfectly fine. But
How much of that you're draining like daily? Like how much are you actually accumulating in that bucket, you would say? Like
not much at all. Like every time, it really only happens when I water the plants or when I
right.
soak the substrates, and it's probably like not even an inch of water, half inch of water. It's not very much.
Yeah. Right on. Now, if we're kind of talking about how things are going for you right now with your parent, like I feel like once you get the ball rolling, they're rolling, right? Like from based off what I'm seeing so far, you have pairs that already gave you clutches, you put them in the incubator, and now they're already giving you more clutches. Is that right?
Yeah, it kind of depends. So like some are still trickier than others. Like my blue female and my Cordensis female, which are my only two adult captive bred animals. Those two are by far the easiest to cycle. Like they're like machines. And it's I don't really have to do anything special. Whereas the yellow and the Bomei, I had to do. I think I've got her in a cycle right now. I can't say for sure, but she's been hanging for the past couple weeks. She's looking really big now, and her hip bones are starting to kind of sink in. So I'm thinking she's nearing vitellogenesis. But
Is she eating
yeah,
right
we'll see.
now?
Yeah, she's eating.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
I'm.
and
She's
and
got.
how are you feeding her at this point? When you see them like that and they're kind of, in a sense could be cycling, how are you feeding her?
So it kind of depends. So like for the Cordensis female, she's pretty deep into the cycle. She's kind of going off of food now. Like she's really only accepting like one quail or one pinky rat every like 3 days now, and sometimes she still denies. Like she just denied me for like a week. I'm pretty certain because she ovulated. But the yellow female has a bit more body weight right now than I would like her to normally have. But since she's gearing up for a cycle, it doesn't matter. But because she's got more body weight, instead of like the Cordensis female, I gave her a quail and a pinky rat today, and she ate both of them, which was the biggest she's had in a while. But building up to this cycle for her, I was giving her like two quail, one pinky rat, three quail, like every 2 to 3 days, depending. And
Mhm.
then, but the yellow female, she's in that same stage. I'm building her up to Vitalo. I'm only giving her like one quail every 3 days right now, just because she's got more body weight. And I'm still even, sometimes I'll even just throw out a quail and I'll just give her roaches for right now.
Mm.
And I'm curious to see if it will work, because it seems to be working. And I would like, and I don't want to slam her too much because I don't want her to push her too overweight, she's not overweight right now, but she could be soon if I kept slamming her with food and she doesn't, in fact, cycle, which I don't want that to happen. But if this doesn't work, I've got a backup plan. But
Right.
but yeah, we'll see. Kind
Yeah,
of depends. But sorry.
no, no. I mean, no. I'm just. It's interesting to hear. Like, you have some species that just are like clockwork for you at this point, but you have other ones where it's kind of making you have to sit there and think here for a second. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
exactly.
But it's also something that you're not more familiar with either, because you're just now starting to get your hands wet and
Hmm.
established with having clutches from Bomias and Credensis, right?
Yeah, yeah. The Cordensis, I got one clutch from her that looked completely perfect, but she scattered them. But it was also only her second clutch ever, so I'm not sure if it was because she scattered them or if it was because it was her second clutch and they were just weak eggs. But
Right.
those four eggs went bad within like 30 days, which kind of sucked, but wasn't too unexpected.
But that's usually like for a reason, right? From what I've understand, if they're laid that way, that means they don't want anything to do with them. From what I've heard.
Exactly. I think that too, because the only ones I've ever had do that where they scatter them are clutches. No matter how good they look, they go bad.
Right.
Like it's so,
It's
and I
like
got to them.
it's like they know, they're like fucking
That's what
these.
I think too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they just somehow know if they've got good eggs or bad eggs. But yeah, I mean, I got to those Cordensis eggs with I saw her drop them on the camera, so I know like the longest one sat there was like 30 minutes. Like they were all still warm by the time I got to them.
Right.
So I feel like it's because it was just her second clutch ever, because that was the same case with like my blue female actually laid them in the lay box, but I had one egg that was perfect. And well, it wasn't perfect, but it looked really good. And it was fertile because it went to like day 70, 80, and then I cut it open and there was like the tiniest little embryo starting to grow. Like you could see the tail, you could see like the eye starting. It was crazy, but it just went bad for no reason. But now I've got, and what else is interesting is I had candled them around like day 50, couldn't see any veins on that one. These 9 blue tree eggs that I have now, they're only on day 70 something. They're like close to day 70. I don't know the exact day. But I could see full vein networks in them and they were already starting to swell up by day 30. And now they're like balloons already.
Right.
So I think some eggs, no matter how good they look, they're just destined to not go the distance, even if they're incubated perfectly.
Dude, yeah, and the thing with tree monitors, they'll make you fucking wait a while until you could figure that out too.
Yeah.
I realized
Yeah.
I realized they could look good until like day 100 something, and then all of a sudden you're like, what the fuck, you know?
Yep.
Anyways, we won't go there. I gotta ask you though, you know, when it comes down to like, you know, you said you're the ones you have success with as far as the blues are going good for you and the yellows, right? Or are cycling really well for you?
Blues, yellows, bony eye cordensis are all going good. I don't
So
have
the black.
anything.
You haven't done the blacks yet?
So I've gotten 2 clutches from her. Both were bad. One egg that she got, well, she laid 2 good looking eggs. One of them got soaked by the mister. I saw her, she dropped it 15 minutes before the mister kicked on. I
Oh
saw
gosh.
it like 10 minutes later, and I tried rushing there as fast as I could. Couldn't get there. I should have turned off the mister before, but it's whatever. But
Yeah.
the other egg that she laid with that one, it was fine. It like she didn't lay it in the lay box, but it like fell into the hole through the lay box, so it was like protected that way. But that egg went till day 90 and then had nothing in it when I cooked it up, or when I cut it open. Had no veins, had like the littlest bit of like something red in it. So I don't know if it was fertile or not, but they did lock for that time. The first clutch I got from her, I had just put the male in and they didn't even lock.
Mm.
But yeah, this time around, I've been a little bit, I don't know. It was so weird. They've given me the most trouble by far, because I mean I've cycled her before and she was easy to get the first 2 clutches. I just had to slam her with food. But then this time around, I don't know if you saw my story a while back, but I was showing the male, like showing breeding interest. I mean, the male was glued to her back, like trying to lock. I'd see his
Mm.
hemipene pop out and everything
Wow.
for like 3 weeks straight. And she never became receptive. And she was also hanging on the wall. She had sunken in hip bones. She looked like a damn sausage, but they just never locked. And I still
Mm.
don't know why. But I ultrasounded her after the end of that 3 weeks because I was like, what the hell's going on? We checked her. She had like fresh follicles starting off, whereas I thought she would have had like ones
Yeah.
close to vitilo, maybe ones that were already starting to form, and then she just for some reason wouldn't lock with the male. But also during that time, she's had a bloom of a parasite, so I think that relates to why she's been giving me difficulty. But I was holding off on treating her because I was seeing all this attention from the male, and I was like, well, I don't want to treat her and risk the panic her interacting with the eggs if she is going to actually in fact lay eggs, because actually, I forgot, they did lock for one day. There was one day where they locked for a few hours. It wasn't a good lock, but they did actually lock. So I was extra paranoid because I was like, I don't want to mess up these eggs if she is going to lay some. But after I saw those follicles that they were just starting off, I was like, okay, I'm cutting food, putting her in a big deficit because she was chunky. And so yeah, so she's been in a deficit now for a while. And I just got done treating them last Sunday. Excuse me. So they're starting to look really good now, and cleaning out their enclosures. And then once their enclosures are cleaned out, we'll try again and we'll see what happens.
So
But
what do
yeah,
you call, would you call it, parasite bloom, or what do you call that? What do you
yeah,
what
it's just like
describe that,
sorry.
describe what that is, and describe how I could know if that's happening at all with mine.
I mean, it depends on like the parasite, but a parasite bloom just kind of refers to like an overgrowth of the parasite, because lizards can really, like, especially monitors, like they can really tolerate some parasite blooms. Like for example, when I first started checking everybody myself, I was like, okay, if there's one lizard that doesn't have a parasite bloom, it's my male yellow tree. Because I could barely, I still to this day, it's hard to keep that dude slim. Like he has to eat less than everybody else because he's just such a chunky dude. but he's down 40 grams since I started him on the diet. So he's losing weight, which is great, and he looks pretty good right now. He still could lose a couple 10 grams or so, but if you notice the parasite bloom, there's different things that for me, the biggest indicator is how the poops look. So like if you're getting very like watery poops with like, if you're feeding dubia and you see like bits of dubia that are undigested, that's always like a big flag for me. Because every time right after I treat them with Panicer, their poops are perfect. Like it's like a solid brown log, just sitting there nice and pretty. Like I can find them every time. And but anyways, yeah, my male yellow tree, I was like, okay, there's no way this dude has a parasite bloom, because I would imagine he would be dropping weight since the parasites would be sapping the nutrients from him.
Right.
This guy had more pinworms. It was only pinworms, so it was okay, but he had like every frame that I would look, there was like 5 moving ones in sight. I was like, oh my god, like it was gnarly, but the dude was fine. Like he was completely fine, and his poops didn't even look bad either. Like his poops
Wow.
were fine, but I treated him anyways, of course, because that was quite a bloom, and I think it only took 1 dose that time. Because that's the other thing, because there's a lot of, some people say Panicer can be risky. I don't know. I feel like it can be risky for fresh imports that are extremely underweight, extremely dehydrated, have other issues going on. I think for a perfectly healthy adult that's got a good weight, if he's got a parasite bloom and you give him a bit of Panicer, as long as it's the proper dose, I think they're just fine. But I try not to overdo it. So like I'll in between. So typically what I'll do is I'll dose them 1 week. I'll dose them 3 weeks in a row, 1 time a week. And during in between doses, I'll check their poops again. And if I see a drop off, or if I see like 0 living ones, or I see barely any eggs, like it's all kind of, if it's kind of dissipated already, I'll just be like, okay, maybe I'll just do 1 more treatment, or I'll just stop the treatment in total. And I feel like that way I'm safe. That way I'm safe, and I don't have to really worry about overdoing it or anything. But I also only treat once a year max.
Hey, do you treat yourself, or does your vet help you come treat them?
He'll I treat them myself, so I just use food. Like
So inject it?
So I'll use quail, or this way I don't like to do, but because if I'm treating a male, I don't want him taking in a bunch of quail, because quail is always the easiest if you just puncture it through the stomach down the throat. Sorry,
Right.
it's
I know, it's
nasty,
pretty
but
gnarly. It is what it is. Yeah.
yeah, but that's the best way to do it. But the dubia will also work well. I'll take one and I'll like this is gnarly, but I'll like kind of go in the back end and rip it open, and then I'll like squeeze out all the guts. So it's like a nice little pocket. And then I'll just fill it with the medicine, and then I'll feed it butt end to the tree monitor, because 9 out of 10 times they'll bite it from the butt end, and it just shoots all the medicine down their throat. And
Right.
it's a done deal. But yeah, those are the 2 ways I administer medicine. And what I'll do is I'll just take a picture of whatever I'm seeing through the microscope. By now I kind of have, there's not many, I mean, if I get some wild caught ones in, thankfully I haven't really had anything gnarly with any new wild caughts I've gotten, but there's always the risk of something I've never seen before. But there's 2 or 3 pretty straightforward parasites that I've seen that just kind of are in the feeders that I use. That's kind of just unavoidable. But yeah. I'll just take a picture and send him that picture and be like, kind of verify with him, and then he'll tell me what to treat and stuff, and I'll just go pick it up at the office, and then that's that.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know about you, man, but I have a female that's super picky when it comes to eating. Like she won't even eat quail at this point. She did at one point. Me having her, I've had her for 3 years now. What have you done with picky eaters? Have you had any picky eaters that are just like kind of stubborn, and you're able to like kind of get them to eat whatever they want now, or like give me some advice here?
Yeah, so I've had probably more picky eaters than not, especially in terms of wanting to take dubia roaches, because that's like the easiest feeder for me to get. I'm working on trying to clear out a space to be able to breed a bunch of grasshoppers, especially for the baby tree monitors. I would way rather prefer to feed grasshoppers than crickets, because right now I have a couple that actually accepted dubia, like very tiny dubia, but for the babies, but for the most part they get most excited for crickets. I put in an order with Kai for some grasshoppers. I was a little late to it because I honestly thought the babies were going to hatch around day 180. So I thought I still had a little more time, but I'm not complaining. But but yeah, I would like to get some of those. sorry, what was I gonna say? I lost my train of thought.
Crit, you were gonna get some from Kai.
Yeah, gonna get some grasshoppers from Kai. Try those with the babies. Hopefully that does well. Oh, sorry, picky eaters. But yeah, for picky eaters, so most of the time I've heard of like Mason, my friend Mason Barnes. He is a green tree monitor female. That's like the only one I've seen that doesn't like egg, but she doesn't like egg, which is kind of tough because all of the ones that I've had, egg is one of their favorite foods. Like every single time. So what I'll do is I'll use that to my advantage, and I'll use raw egg, or so there's two things that I'll do. I'll try and just dip like a dubia roach in raw egg if they won't accept dubia, and that's what I'm trying to get them to eat. I'll dip it in the raw egg, offer it to them. I've had them sometimes that works, and that's all it takes. And then I just do that a few times, and then they just see the dubia associated with egg, and now they get excited as hell for dubia. Like that was the case for which one was it? That was the case for the blue female. She didn't like dubia at first, but that she was pretty easy. But then like my male Bomei, he was great with tongue feeding, but he would never take dubia. The female would take dubia, but he wouldn't. And for him, the dunking it in the yolk wouldn't work. So what I started doing is I would give him just like a small piece of egg to start off the feeding. So he'd get all excited. He's like, oh, he's ready for egg now. So he's just gonna snap at anything that moves. And then after that, I would cook the egg I would scramble it and I would cook it really thin. And then I would grab the dubia with the tongs from the butt as like little as I could. And then I would drape the egg over top of it. Usually I would kill the dubia first as well, because if they're moving around, they'll knock the egg off. But so I'd kill the dubia, drape the egg over top of it, and then I would feed it that way. But I would try and like flip it over, flip it quickly right as his mouth was open to bite it. So he would only bite the dubia. And that worked for him. It took some finesse to do that little movement.
You tricking him.
Yeah, exactly. But I tricked him enough, and now the dude will fly out of the enclosure for dubia. He loves them because he associates them with egg. But like grasshoppers, which used to be the only bug he would accept at first, he'll still eat grasshoppers, but he does not really get excited for them. Like he gets just as excited for dubia now as he does egg. Yeah. So it tells me that he now relates that with egg in his brain, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. So my female seems to really only like my female Persinus, the adult import that I have. She seems to really only like egg and won't eat dubia roaches. She likes grasshoppers, but my operation with grasshoppers is on the low end right now, so I don't really have many feeders to give to her. But I'm trying to get her to eat these dubias because I got a dubia colony now that's just cracking off, and I'm a huge fan of the dubias, man. It's so cool to like.
They're nice.
To see them what they're eating, most importantly, right? Because I feed them nothing but organic oranges and like apples and like, you know, a bunch of cool greens. And to see that go from the dubia to my monitor is like refreshing. Like I'm like, wow, these things are eating really good stuff. So I really like my female because, like you were saying, I kind of fucked up in a sense where I fed my female thinking she's going to cycle again because she gave me 3 clutches and I thought it was that time, you know, she was showing all the behaviors, but she never cycled, right? But I kind of kept feeding her like regularly. Like I kept feeding her. So she got more on the bigger end. So I'm just trying to slim her down by just giving her insects for now. But she's like, fucking no, I only want egg or some sort of rodent. That's her thing. You know what I mean?
Yep. That's pretty much what just happened with me with my black tree female. She just got, because I mean she was like hanging on the wall and everything, and I'm like, oh, okay, we're on track. I'll just keep the food coming. Right. And her hip bones were sunken in. That was the other thing. But I think her hip bones were kind of sunken in. I think she started to cycle and then I think she entered Vitilo, and that's what got the male so crazy about her. But then as like once they go into Vitilo, they start having to pump nutrients into it. And I think the parasite load made her like nervous to do that, I guess you could say. And she canceled the cycle, started reabsorbing. So I think that's where that came from. But if you just so I would boost if she's still chunky right now, obviously get her on insects, that would help the most. But cranking up the heat, like maybe 5 degrees ambient, would really help for just like a few weeks. That would really help to boost up the metabolism and get her moving and help slim her down. I'm going to do that with my yellows after, hopefully once I hope they are in fact cycling and getting ready to breed again. But if they are, then after that, I'm going to kind of slim them down a little bit. Well, probably not the female, but the male a little bit more.
Right. But, now, would you say the Bomei and the Cordensis are the smallest out of all the species you keep, or what would you say their size is compared to all of the rest? the adult?
Actually, no, so the Bomei are the exact same size as my Bomei were the exact same weight and size as my black trees. They're
Cool.
like the males are right around 310, 320 grams, and the females are around depending obviously if they were in eggs or not, they're probably right around that, maybe 10, 20 grams more, 330, 340. But then my yellows are on the bigger end. They're more like the male just got down to, he's like 360, 370. He's still a little big, but he's also much bigger than the black male and the Bomei male. And then the female, she's more 350, 340, somewhere right around there. But probably not right now. She's probably about 10, 15 grams heavier right now because she's a little bit chunkier. But and then you got there's my blues that are they're huge. They're my male, who's one of my leanest males too. Let me add, he's 520 grams with like a little bit of his tail hanging off the scale. So like he's probably a little more, but he's huge. And the female, it's tougher to get like right now. I'm starting to feed her a little heavy to hopefully trigger another cycle. She's one that's hard to keep out of a cycle, man. She just always wants to cycle. I had to cancel one like a month ago because she wanted to. I don't know if I think I stopped feeding her because I noticed her hanging on the wall and then her hip bone sunk in again, and
Right.
nothing changed about how I was feeding her. So I think she tried to enter another cycle about a month ago, but that was too close to her laying 9 freaking eggs. So I was like, a bit more of a break. But
Yeah,
the
and
Cordens,
that's important to say, Parker, because people won't understand that could actually kill a female if you're not careful.
for sure. And I also want to say this too, like 9 eggs is also like how do I explain this? So like my Cordensis right now, even though the Cordensis are definitely smaller than all the others, like my
Right.
Cordensis, just in terms of size overall, they're probably more like 2.5 feet. They're probably not quite 3.5. My yellows are probably more like 3.5 feet. The blues are 4. But yeah, the Cordensis are more like 2. The male's a bit younger. He's like 210, 200, no, probably 210, 220 now. And then the female, well, she's chock full of eggs, so she's probably like 260, 270, 280, maybe even heavier. But like normal weight, she's closer to the male. She's like 230, 240, something like that. But the and then the greens are very close in size of the Cordensis, I would say too. Um, Shoot, I lost my train of thought again. Sorry, it's been such a long week. I've hardly slept because of those babies.
No, you're good, bro. No, you're good. You're good. Don't trip. Yeah, because Brandon said something on the podcast that I just mentioned not too long ago. About the size ranges. And
Yeah.
I think it's too similar in size to even really kind of. I mean, I don't think what the difference is to be honest. I don't think one's that smaller than the other. I mean, you do have ones that are a lot bigger. I think the blues is probably the biggest one I've ever seen as a blue.
Yeah, they're
And
big.
yeah, which that makes sense to why your male weighs so much. But
Yeah,
he also looks slim. You said too.
he looks slim, but yeah, I mean, he's just like a giant tree monitor. Like his head is probably like, hold on, let me adjust my fingers. I mean, his head's probably like that. Like
Yeah,
he's got like a huge head. I need to get a picture of him on my arm. But sorry, I remember what I was gonna say. My bad.
you're good.
It's been such a long week. Um, so what I was gonna say, so even though my blue female laid 9 eggs, she didn't look like overly large. Like my Cordensis female right now looks more full of eggs than my blue female did. Obviously, like she's way smaller than the blue female, so she's not like bigger overall. But in terms of like proportions, she looks way more full of eggs than my blue female did. So like I really wouldn't be surprised if the blue female lays even more than 9 eventually. Like she's just abnormally large. And it's like her rib cage. Like she's been pretty skinny this past month. Like I had to bulk her up a bit more. Obviously, it makes sense because she laid more eggs than she ever has before. But like even when she's skinny like that, it's like she's like a dinner plate. Like she like constantly has that pear shape. It's like her ribs down below are just much wider than a typical tree monitor. She's very interesting. So I will say like I'm cycling her again now. It's been about 3 months now. No, a little over 2 months. Sorry. So it'll be 3 months if she does in fact kick in to a cycle right now by the time she lays the eggs. But like I think depending how many she lays this time, depending how it goes, I'll probably take a bit of a longer break between the next clutch. But yeah, like she's a machine. She's like a different. The rules are different for her. Like I mean, she'll eat like 4 quail and a pinky rat. Like that's like twice as much as the other girls too,
Yeah.
and still be begging for food the next day. Like she's something else.
Your males are on solely insects, right? Or do you ever give your males a quail or anything like that?
Yeah, I give them a quail once every 2 weeks.
Okay.
And then sometimes I'll give them some eggs. Sometimes I'll switch it up sometimes for them. I'll also give everybody grasshoppers now and then. I would like to do it more. I would like to start. I would if I could get them eating grasshoppers like at least one feeding every 2 weeks. That'd be most ideal to me. Even more would be more ideal, but I want to get to the at least once every 2 weeks. Right now, it's probably more like once a month or once every couple months.
My male Persinus loves egg too much. Like I try to hand feed him like the female, like out of a deli cup. He'll forcefully put his face into that cup, like he's trying to go through the cup. And I'm like, oh my God. And he'll basically rip the cup out of my hand. You know what I mean?
Yep.
You don't play when it comes to the egg.
No, yeah. Yeah, I've got something like that too. Like my male black tree is just crazy for food. The dude is always on go mode. Like it's so hard to feed. All the other males, I can just if they're in the same enclosure and I need to feed the female but not him, I can just lure them through the hole to the other enclosure. They'll just chase the bug right through, and then once they're in there, they stay in there. I don't have to worry. The male black tree, I can do that, and then the second he hears the female scuffle a bit, he comes running through the hole. He's looking all around. He looks right at her, and then we'll just gun straight for her for the food. So
Right.
it's like, oh my god. Thankfully, he's gotten very social recently, so I can actually just go in and grab him anytime, and he really doesn't care. Typically, not. He doesn't always let me grab him over top. He's still a little hesitant about that. But I can almost always just scoop him up, and he doesn't mind. So then I'll just hold him out the enclosure while she eats, because he's crazy.
A big common problem with people who have a pair of tree monitors who are like, yeah, they want them to breed, but they're just not really trying. They just have them together and don't have any success with it. You know, a lot of them come down to maybe thinking like, you know, the male and female aren't compatible, right? Or the male needs a break. You don't really think that's really the case sometimes, right? You don't think that the male needs to get away from the female for a while for them to start breeding? Or can you refresh my memory and what your take was on that?
Yeah, for right now, I haven't had an issue with leaving them together full term. Like when the female, like there's been multiple, like even right now with the yellows, like I don't think it's a coincidence that the second I'm like, oh, I see her hanging on the wall, showing the right signs, she's swelling up, she's hanging on the wall overnight for 12 plus hours. She's her appetite's increasing, her hip bones are slightly sinking in. At that same time, the male is now starting to go up to her, intensively tongue flick, kind of try to seem like he's trying to pin her down and lock with her. But they've been together for the past almost 6 months now. They've been together since since she laid the first clutch. So it's sorry, not almost 6 months. It's been like 5 months now. But at the same time, I don't want to say for sure because they haven't locked yet. I haven't had a second round of success with them yet. So I have been considering possibly separating them for like maybe just even a few days and then reintroducing, because I do think that can always be helpful, because almost every time you do that, the male is going to show the dominance. He's going to do the typical dominance display where he walks up on the female. It's like almost the same as breeding behavior. And sometimes I think that can lead to breeding behavior. But like where he walks up, intensely tongue flicking the neck, just pins the female down. A lot of the that's from the first clutch of yellows. That's what happened. Like I was still separating them just like throughout the week for a day or two at a time, because the female wasn't tongue feeding, and if I left any food in a dish, he'd just eat it all, and then he'd be fat, and she'd never eat. So I'd separate them for a few days to give her a chance to eat. And then one day, I wasn't even feeding her heavy. Like she hadn't eaten in like a month. She literally hadn't eaten like a single piece of food in a month. And then suddenly I opened the enclosure, or I opened the tunnel, let him back in, and I checked the cameras the next day, and they're locked on the wall. I was like, oh my God, it worked. But, and then right after that, like the next day, once they were done locking, she was tongue feeding again. She ran right up to me for a pinky rat, and she started slamming some quail. So sorry, never mind. Yeah, so I think, I don't know. We'll see. I don't feel like it's necessary, because for all of mine throughout the success, they've been paired up for a month or two, and I see no breeding behavior until it's time for breeding behavior, and then they just go at it. Yeah. Or you might see interest like 7 to 10 days before they actually lock. That's very typical. Or even in some cases too, I feel like I've had some go way longer. Like the Cordensis, for example, this time around. Like most people will say it lasts like 4 weeks, which is the case. I think it varies on the female because I think the amount of time it takes them to build up the follicles can really vary. And I think that's where like the different times come. Because I was posting videos or pictures of my female Cordensis hanging like a month and a half ago at this point. It took her like a month and she was hanging, her hip bones were sinking in, she was swelling, swelling, swelling. So typically you'd expect to, from what I've heard from other people, you would expect to see locks within that 4 weeks. But for her, it was like 5 weeks out, and then 6 weeks out, and then they still hadn't locked, but she was still hanging. So I'm like, do I keep feeding her? I was like, I might as well because it's not like she was putting on weight. Like that weight was clearly going into building something, and then boom, they locked, and now they've locked for 5 days straight, or not straight, but they've locked for 5 full days. And it's been like 2 months or a month and a half to 2 months since I started slamming her with food. So I think it varies. I think the time that it takes the female to build up really can vary. But,
Yeah, and so a lot of it's case by case, is what you're saying.
yeah, exactly. Because my Blackfeet female is the same way, but then there's like the blue female with this last clutch where I gave her 9 eggs. It was like she was so hungry every day for weeks, like just begging for food every day. I could give her 10 dubia roaches, 10 giant jumbo dubia roaches, like barely, like just about to turn into adults. Still the next day, even that same day, she's still begging for food, still begging for food. So I
Yeah.
finally am like, all right, I'll cycle you again. Fine. I give her like, she eats like 4 quail and a pinky rat. 3 days later, before I could even feed her again, they're locked again. They're locked on the wall. Like she wasted no time. She was on go mode. And then 30 days, well, actually, I don't think it was 30 days from that point, but 30 to 40 days later, I had 9 eggs from her. So I think it kind of depends. I think it also will just, maybe not necessarily on the female herself, but maybe just the specific cycle. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, still got to get clutch 2 from, I feel like getting clutch 2 from the yellows will be a big learning curve. I think I'll learn a lot, especially like just about her and that more tricky pair I would consider.
Has it even been a year yet since you've gotten your first clutch?
No, my first clutch was the like the first like clutch total, like infertile even.
Tree monitor, yeah, your first fertile tree monitor clutch. How long ago was that?
Probably about a year ago from now.
Okay.
I would
And,
say.
and
Wait. First fertile tree monitor clutch. That was the yellows and the bone. Yeah, those two were laid within 2 days of each other. Those are the first 2 fertile ones I ever got. The first clutch like of duds was from the black female, and that was I think around February, March of last year.
Okay.
Something like that. Maybe January. Yeah, somewhere around there.
It's crazy what you could accomplish in a year.
Yeah, man, it's been quite the, like I think of what I like learned, or sorry, I think of what I knew a year ago compared to now, and it's like,
Yeah.
I don't even like recognize myself. Like I've come, I feel like I've come so far, which is it's nice, but
And that's kind of a sign that you're doing it right, because you're constantly looking for newer things and just kind of like, this is the first time ever hearing about someone really looking for parasites within their tree monitors on a regular basis and treating them and whatnot, and I think this is important to do.
I think so too. I just consider it all like, even like the things like, I don't know if you ever turn the sound on some of those videos I post, like there's
For sure.
loud rainforest music playing, and I keep that on 24/7 in there for them, because I think just even things like that, like I've noticed that will make them, whereas if I were in the room and I dropped a pair of tongs a year ago, everybody'd scatter, like they'd freak out because it was like a loud noise. Now
Right.
I can like knock over a ladder and make a big banging sound, and they're just like looking over like, what was that, dude? Like they just, I don't know, they seem so chill now. But I just look at I don't think it just comes down. I think to have a lot of success breeding, it doesn't come down to just like certain things like dropping temps, feeding them, like those things help trigger it. But I think overall, like just keeping them as happy and healthy as possible is the best thing you can do if you want to have success breeding.
Yeah, and if you're only working with a pair, there's nothing that guarantees, even if you have everything correct, that you're still going to get success breeding. Like it's not,
Yeah,
it's just
exactly.
it's just like human nature. Like it's just not, everything's not ever meant to reproduce, for whatever
Exactly.
reason,
Exactly.
So that's why, just keeping them comfortable and happy is first and foremost the biggest box that should be checked. If they're jumping out on you, eating, going back in, drinking, being normal, then that you should be happy with that.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah. I agree.
Now, somebody said this to me in the chondro world, and I want to know if this relates to tree monitors. All right, keeping and breeding chondros isn't for the faint at heart. Do you think that relates to tree monitors too? Do you think there's anything within keeping tree monitors could be something like brutal to fucking take the soul out of you sometimes?
Oh yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, especially with tree monitors, because for a lot of them you have to deal with imports, which the brutal reality is a lot of imports are you're gonna get unlucky sometimes. Like there's gonna be ones that are beat up too far beyond like repair,
Right.
and you may not know it at first. Like you can keep them as happy, they could be perfect until they're not. And I've had that happen with a few of them, and it really really sucks. But yeah, it's not only that. I mean, it's just like sometimes even like the black trees, like it's like it can be frustrating where it's like you see them like pinning each other down for weeks, and it's like, oh, tomorrow they're gonna lock. Oh, tomorrow they're gonna lock. Oh, tomorrow they're gonna lock, and then it just keeps going and going.
Right.
It's like that can be like, what am I doing wrong? Like I don't know. There's so much or losing an egg. Like I was pretty bummed about losing that one blue egg, even though it's like I expected it. I was pretty bummed about losing the Cordensis clutch because it looked so perfect. But it's
Right.
like these things happen. Even just like I'm thinking about selling these because I am gonna sell some of the yellows. I don't want to.
The babies are your breeding yellows. What do you mean?
Wait, what?
You're talking about you selling some of your babies, the yellow
Yeah,
babies?
yeah, the babies. Yeah,
Okay.
the baby yellows. Yeah, no, not the adults. Yeah, the adults are with me forever. But yeah, even like selling these baby yellows, I'm like, ugh, I don't want to.
I mean, because look how sociable they are. Like it's kind of
exactly.
like they're like your little kids.
Yeah, exactly. Like I thought it was gonna be kind of easy because I'm expecting these yellows to come out hating me. Like I expected to just be trying to like get them to walk onto my arm with
Right.
food, stuff like that. Like trying to earn trust that way. Because I mean, correct me if I'm wrong if you've seen anything, but like worldwide online, I've like never seen a blue or a yellow tree monitor like as social as like those are right now, or like as social as like a green tree monitor can be, or a black tree monitor where they're just walking out onto your arm. You can pet them like with no food involved.
That's captivity for you, man. That's kind of that's the whole benefit of getting this shit down in captivity, because they're not going to act like they're from the wild anymore. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Like it's captive bred is just the way. That's why I'm keeping all these Bomei too, because I want to hold back all the Bomei so that in 3 years I can swap bloodlines with because there's a couple other people. Brian obviously has eggs incubating that I think should be hatching sometime soon.
Yeah.
But then there's a couple other people, or at least one that I know of that's I think close to breeding. So there's other bloodlines of captive bred animals that I can hopefully swap with, and then have my own unrelated captive bred Bomei pair breeding, because then I don't have to worry about all the imports, because especially Bomei, man, they seem to come in rough like a lot of the time. And it kind of makes sense because the Wago Islands are off the coast of West Papua, which is like way the hell up there. So I'd imagine they have to take a long journey down to Indonesia, like Jakarta or wherever. I don't know exactly where they ship out from, but it seems like from all the species, where the other species are more off the coast down. It kind of depends, but they seem to have like the longest journey in. But yeah, captive bred is the way. The way.
Yeah, man, it's so amazing just to even be talking about this stuff. And you know, honestly, it's because the Bomei, man, and even the yellows aren't. I'm sorry, not the yellows, but the Cordensis. Like we're still talking about super untapped species of tree monitors here.
Yeah,
like, they're nowhere near, as far as where they're about to be in the next few years. You know what I'm saying? Like
exactly.
It's about to be crazy, and I just think it's an awesome thing to be a part of, because you know, I come from working with snakes, but nothing hits like these tree monitors, man. I don't know what it is. I mean, I know what it is.
They're the best.
they are simply the best, man. And then the reward you get from them just by giving them the time and the trust, and then you know them coming out and just, you know, I can't find another better species than a tree monitor, unfortunately, right now. Sorry guys, don't mean to bust any snake keepers bubbles out there, but tree monitors are the best. And
no, I totally agree, man. Even some of the larger monitors, I love monitors as a whole. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
But even like my Black Dragon Asian water monitor, like she's awesome. She's as social as can be too. I love her, but I don't get the same out of her, even though she's big and she's cool. It's like I just don't get the same out of those as I do a tree monitor. I think it has to do with like the challenge. Like I really like the challenge. It can be frustrating, but because of how frustrating it is, it makes it that much more rewarding when things go well. Like even simple things, just like getting one tongue feeding. It's like my day is made. I'm walking with my head high that day. Like it's, yeah, they're so rewarding. I love tree monitors. They're incredible. I'm so blessed to work with them.
I'm very happy to just even be friends with you, man, and to see, what's to come with you coming back on the show, giving us updates on what's happening with you and all the tree monitor projects. And I could already tell your future is going to be bright as shit, man. So
Thanks, man.
Thank you. Thank you for coming on tonight. I want you to go enjoy the rest of your evening. I know you and I got to go watch those UFC fights. That's for sure.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, man.
Justin
Please.
Gaethje, let's go.
Yeah, for
Arizona.
sure. I'm going for Justin for sure. But guys, go give my man a follow on Instagram, Parker's Park. Parker, go enjoy the rest of your night and
thanks, man.
Try to get some sleep, buddy. I know those tree monitors are amazing to stare at. I'd be doing the same thing, but go get some rest tonight if you can.
Yes, sir, I will. Once I win my bets in UFC, I'm sleeping like a baby.
There you go, man. I hope you sleep good tonight.
Yes, sir.
Have a good night, man. Give it up for my homie Parker's Park, man. See you later, buddy.
Thanks, man. See you. Thanks for having me on.
All right, buddy. Peace out. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Hope you enjoyed this Saturday's all tree monitor talk with Parker's Park. Get ready. In 2 weeks, you'll have Codey back here, and we'll be keep kicking things back off on the whole tree monitor segment, man. But tonight's episode is brought to you by Blake Exotic Feeders. We talked a lot about quail. This is where to get your quail. That's for a fact. So make sure you head over to Blake Exotic Feeders on Instagram. Let him know that MJ sent you, and he'll take extra good care of you. Again, Blake Exotic Feeders, #1 quail in the reptile game. And that's a fact. I also want to say tonight's episode is brought to you by The Chipper, #1 substrate in the game, COCO.com. Put in TrapFam24 to get 24% off your substrate for the entire year. And that's a fact. Thank you so much. Had a great time talking tree monitors with all you guys. I got to go watch some UFC now. Hope you have a good night. I'll catch you here Monday for new